We are officially at the Season 3 midpoint, and Blizzard dropped 3 different sets of changes and bug hotfixes to Mythic Plus dungeons this week. BMDI is starting, and it looks like Blizzard wants to get things all fixed up and set up in preparation for that, and they're being a little bit last minute about it. The Farrak Hall of Fame has closed, the Hall of Flame has closed, and the big set of Amir Drasil nerfs and class tuning is still right around the corner, I guess. It'll be here any day, I'm sure of it. Hi, it's Llarold, and I'm going to talk about this week's changes and just some of my thoughts on Season 3 of Mythic Plus as we're kind of getting on a bit here. So let's just start by jumping right into these changes. We'll start with the first one, which happened on February 12th, a couple of days ago. It was just one change to the Everbloom. Fixed an issue where Rockspine Stinger's Venom Burst could be applied to non-player targets. So let's jump in game and look at MDT here and look at those mobs. The Rockspine Stingers are these guys, the Wasps. They're in a lot of packs in the start of the dungeon. A lot of them around here. One in this first pull, couple more over to the side, even more lingering around. So a priest could use Dominate Mind, which unlike Mind Control, we look at this here. Dominate Mind, let's take a look at it. Control a mind up to 1 level above yours for 30 seconds while still controlling your own. So you're not having to lose your brain to control something else. And it only doesn't work on demonic, mechanical, and undead beings. So you could use it on beasts. These guys are beasts, and that's basically what priests would do. Typically, a disciplined priest in a high-level Mythic Plus key would mind control one of these wasps. Now, why is that a big deal? Because Venom Burst deals damage over time. It also applies a circle to the target that it's, put on, and it causes them to pulse damage to nearby enemies. Now, because they were mind controlling these guys and then blasting just whatever, any enemy in a pack, it would cause that damage to radiate out to nearby enemies. Normally, this kind of thing isn't a problem. Usually when you mind control an enemy, their damage gets massively reduced. Like I like mind controlling undead as a Death Knight, being able to control undead as a blood DK, get like 1 or 2% more damage out of that. It's something, but for whatever reason, this just wasn't being tuned down at all. So it was just doing the full amount of damage that it would on players. And in a Mythic Plus 30, that's enough to basically clear all of these packs. So Mythic Plus teams would just pull like all of this at once in a single pull. They would just do like a pull that looked like this basically, and they would get like 20-25% of the dungeon completion done in a single pull by mind controlling some wasps. So surprisingly to me, Blizzard decided to just make that not even be applicable to non-player targets. It is kind of strange that they went that route instead of just nerfing the damage that it dealt, to the normal amount, like 1% of what it would have done to players, but that is the route they went. All right, and that was actually it for that day. So then February 14th, 2 days ago, they dropped another set of changes. They dropped a weird little hotfix to a crazy bug for Tendril, where apparently you could be stranded in the Great Sea. That sounds fun. They also dropped a fix to Ataldazar, addressed an issue where a mind-controlled Dazari Confessor's Dispel can remove an ally challenger's might. All right, let's take a look at, once again, an MDT, Ataldazar. So the route I use, normal kind of pug route, is to drop down, do Razan, and then just sort of do a circle around the dungeon, going to Valkal first, then Priestess Alunza, and then finishing at Yasma. If you go that route, that's fine. Like I said, that is what I do for pugs. For high-level keys, they will kill Razan first, generally, maybe, and then come over to the left here towards Priestess Alunza. Along the way to her, there are these Dazari Confessor mobs. They have a a dispel that you can use with them if they're mind controlled, and apparently that would dispel all buffs off of enemies, including Challenger's Might, which is the mythic buff that makes enemies have more health and damage. So essentially, you could pick one of those guys up, mind control, and that like plus 30 or plus 31 NPC that you're fighting now becomes a Mythic 0 NPC. Which makes things pretty easy, but obviously is super unintended, so probably best to kill that. Darkheart Thicket remove randomized spawn of enemies before Archdruid Gladalis. This is a bug that has been driving high-level Mythic Plusers crazy for a really long time, and I've actually just hung out right next to it. So there was a world quest that in this area. If it would spawn, it spawns an NPC up here that you have to fight. And this pack that I've marked here would despawn so that you could go fight her. And that's true in, I think, the normal, heroic, and in Mythic 0 versions of the dungeon, but in Mythic Plus, it wouldn't be. Obviously, that NPC wouldn't be up there. And so naturally, this pack should still be there, but in Mythic Plus, it wasn't. So for trying to do this dungeon on Mythic Plus weeks, even on the tournament realms for high level players working in the MDI, wanting to do practice of Darkheart Thicket, if that world quest was up, they literally couldn't come practice Darkheart Thicket because they like to include this pull. Not particularly dangerous, not a pull I normally do in Pug Roots just because it's so easily skippable, but it is a good pull to do in high level keys and it wouldn't be available, so they literally wouldn't be able to practice this place. So not great that that had gone on for so long, but I guess they finally fixed that glitch, and isn't that nice? All right, let's kill these guys. All right, let's get back to it. Dawn of the Infinite Rise of Mirazond addressed an issue where Grommash Hellscream can melee players while leaping in the air before Blade Storm, and addressed an issue where battle senses can trigger from Shockwave. These are both just two different bugs associated with the potentially second boss in Mirazond's Rise. Not really a ton to say out of them. The Shockwave being able to trigger the other damage effect, definitely not great for high level keys, could definitely kill people, so important that that was nerfed. In Waycrest Manor addressed an issue where Heartsbane Triads associated auras can fail to fall off. This is a really, really irritating bug that I'd run into a few times more early on in this season and all the way back in BFA. If we go look at the sisters here, particularly this was with the second sister, sister number 2, Sister Malady, her Aura of Dread, which applies a stacking damage over time debuff that is removed when moving. I'd run into this situation multiple times where she would deactivate or die even, and the debuff would stay on. And then you'd keep fighting Sister Briar and the debuff would still be on, and you would finish the fight and it would still be going, and you would just go through the rest of the dungeon constantly taking shadow damage and needing to move in order to reset that debuff. Very irritating bug to deal with. The best way to fix it I had found in the past was to die or to zone out and back in. I think I had even seen some people not be able to get rid of it by dying, and boy, that rules. So it's good that that is fixed. Also addressed an issue where Sister Selena does not lose the soul manipulation debuff if the mind-controlled player dies. I have seen this issue as well. Sister Selena being Sister 1, who mind controls someone with soul manipulation and makes herself take 1% damage while that person's mind controlled. I had seen people get like glacial spiked down, and then now she's just immune to damage, and that's not very fun. That was something that people who had tried to go back and solo this dungeon prior to it being added as a Mythic Plus in this season had run into. If they had like a pet, the pet could get mind controlled, and then you dismiss the pet or DPS the pet or whatever and fix it, and then she's just is still immune to damage, and now you can't solo this dungeon. Pretty lame. Also addressed an issue where Pallid Gorgers can sometimes melee players during Ravaging Leap. This is one of the most irritating bugs in this dungeon. I am very happy to see it go away. Pallid Gorgers are these little ugly creeps here. They're just these dinky little guys, and they shouldn't be so dangerous. You look at them, they just look like a little ugly pig man, but they leap away, cast Ravaging Leap. They sometimes will auto attack while doing that, and then they follow it up with Wretch. The incredibly deadly, dangerous mobs for kind of no reason. And it's good to see that changed. And finally, the spawning of Heartsbane Runeweavers and Heartsbane Soul Charmers are now consistent each week. We don't exactly know what this means because we haven't gotten to see a second week of it yet as to how they will spawn. And I've seen some suggestions that maybe it means that they'll have set spawn locations, and some suggestions that it'll be set spawn types. So the way that they work is, sometimes you'll get a Heartsbane Runeweaver, sometimes you'll get a Heartsbane Soul Charmer, and they will spawn in this area here, in the front hallway. There are 2 of them in this left side hallway. One of them will usually spawn each week. Sometimes it'll be 2, but always 1. And then there is one over here in the kitchen that will sometimes spawn, and it'll be based on whether you got 2 over here. So you will get a combined total of 2 between this left hallway and the kitchen. It's just where they spawn is sort of unknown, and sometimes there'll be different types. Sometimes there'll be the Runeweaver, which etches people and really does a lot of damage, can just basically turn and kill people, and sometimes it'll be the annoying Soul Volley Warding Candles lady instead. Both pretty irritating and we'll just have to see next week as to what exactly this change means, but anything that makes it more consistent is good. It is weird that they didn't just tell us what they meant by it being consistent each week, but you know, I guess I'll take it being more consistent and then I'll figure out exactly what they mean later on. All right, in the final set of changes was dropped just earlier today, and it is for the Everbloom. Witherbark addressed an issue where he can reset during the encounter. Great, that's always good to get rid of. Throne of the Tides addressed an issue where a Najjar Tempest Witch can cast Lightning Surge while mind controlled. That's, I didn't really think that was an issue. I kind of thought that was like just good as a way to add some damage. If we pull up Throne of the Tides here, Najjar Tempest Witches are these little ladies right here, spellcasters, and you could mind control them and they would basically just radiate out damage to enemies, and now that has been taken away. Now all that you can do is mind control them and make them cast Lightning Bolt. Not really all that useful, but that's fine. I think this is fairly similar, although not nearly as strong as the bug mind control in the Everbloom. And finally, Waycrest Manor got even more changes to some irritating things. One where Pallid Gorgers could ignore players and run away. I have seen that before, where they'll just like drop threat and just start running around randomly swatting people, or just not even swatting people, just running around, just having fun. Also reduced their melee damage by 66%. This is great to see. These guys inexplicably hit like a mythic raid boss, and there's really no call for that. They're just like teeny tiny little ugly pigmen, so that's good to see that get nerfed. And finally, Heartsbane Triad added an additional safeguard to ensure Aura of Dread is removed. So apparently that first change that they made earlier this week to make Aura of Dread, to make all of the sisters' auras fall off, it didn't quite take. It took a second round to fix. Okay, great. At least they have got it so that this bug will stop happening and Aura of Dread will stop sticking around after the bosses have died. Now let's shift over to talking about Dragonflight Season 3. It's really good. In the competitive WoW subreddit, Mythic Plus Poster makes a weekly post about Mythic Plus with a useful graph showing off just how popular Season 3 has been week by week compared to the other two Dragonflight seasons. They've been doing this all season long, and the numbers have been pretty good looking. As we can see here, it's a really popular season of Mythic Plus, the most popular on average, and despite a natural decline from the start of the season, it's holding really steady as we continue into the midpoint and beyond. This is great news, and I think it's an indicator of two things. First off, players don't really miss seasonal affixes, and second, players don't miss Dragonflight dungeons. So what does this mean for Season 4? Well, I still think Dragonflight dungeons could be good if they received more tuning, but I would be pretty happy if Blizzard did a second season in a row without any Dragonflight dungeons, or maybe hedged their bets, did a compromise and did half non-Dragonflight and half the most popular Dragonflight dungeons. I would also love to have even fewer weekly affixes. I think most players agree. Reducing the number of affixes in Season 2 was successful, and Blizzard could stand to go even further. Who misses Necrotic? What about old bolstering? Anybody want that back? No way. So I think that pretty much covers it for now. Season 4 is on its way. We don't know exactly when it's coming. Maybe a couple of months from now, probably. Nobody really knows for sure. We'll find out soon enough, I suppose. And yeah, things are going pretty well in Season 3. All right, that's it. Thanks for watching. Bye.